Hey all, Scott here. We interrupt your regularly scheduled Pokemon marathon to discuss a long dormant series that is getting a re-release this holiday season. I would make a witty comment, but since I know nothing about this series, I'm just gonna go to Chiburo Ziplash again. And now to your regularly scheduled host, Mirage.
Yep. So apparently, Scott Pilgrim is actually getting a 10-year anniversary re-release on pretty much every single platform, with the exception of maybe Steam. But because it's owned by Ubisoft, so for as much as I'd love for it to be on Steam, it's not going to get released on Steam. But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about regarding Scott Pilgrim. I like to talk about everything regarding Scott Pilgrim, or as many of the things that I've gone over. So let's dive into this. So Scott Pilgrim, I haven't, I didn't really know too much about this series until later on. I didn't know whose person now who like I didn't know who was I didn't really know which character's personality was like, or I didn't know what every character's personality was like. It was or anything actually. I barely knew anything about Scott Pilgrim other than the fact that it was just cool. Like I knew who the characters were. I knew about Scott. I knew about Ramona. I knew about Kim. I knew about Knives. I knew about some of the other characters. I knew about Wallace. I knew about them, but I barely even knew about like their personalities and stuff.
Yes, for me, all I knew about the series is that there was a guy named Scott, and there was a Ramona versus Amy death battle. I have a feeling that Ramona should have won, despite my love towards Amy. Don't at me.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, yeah, I feel like Ramona should have been able to put up a better fight because the fact that she's pretty skilled, but whatever. I'm pretty sure Death Battle might have some sort of bias towards Sonic characters or something, but
They have always had a bias towards Sonic characters.
yeah. But anyways, so Scott Pilgrim is a very, very interesting series, I guess. Well, not really series, I guess it's not even really a franchise either. I don't know what to label it as, but Scott Pilgrim is, let's call it a continuity for now. I find Scott Pilgrim to be really intriguing. So the essential, I guess, plot or idea, premise, whichever word you'd like to use, is Scott meets a girl named Ramona after dumping a girl named Knives, Chow, who's Chinese, and another girl named Kim from high school. And, you know, he's completely entranced by this girl named Ramona. And he's like, oh wow, I like her. And he starts obsessing over her. And, it gets pretty bad. He starts off the conversation with something like, hey, you know who Pac-Man is? And then Ramona just looks completely unamused. And then after the whole thing, after, him being awkward, he continues to, well, stalk her throughout you know, the place where they were partying at. And, it just it just sort of happened. Like, the relation, like, everything I've seen in the movie, like, in terms of the relationship, the pacing, it was so ridiculously fast. I didn't think they'd actually hit it off that quick, but, whatever, it's a movie. There's only so much you can fit in the runtime, so it makes sense. I'm sure in the comics, the pacing's different, though.
Movies are cruel in judging mistress, I have to say.
Yeah, but it's not just about Scott and Ramona. Later on, Scott finds out that Ramona has had 7 evil ex-boyfriends, known as the 7 Deadly Exes, and now it's up to Scott to, well, defeat all of them, and so he can, continue to, sustain the relationship that he built with Ramona. So now he has to take them all on, because if he doesn't, obviously one of them will probably get back together with her or something. I'm not sure what happens if he doesn't, but yeah, that's essentially the main idea here, and I like it. Um, Another thing about Scott, it's not just about that. There are other characters that there are other conflicts as well, other than just the, you know, her, other than Ramona's 7 evil exes. There's there's more to it than that. Obviously, Knives has sort of created a bit of a conflict herself with Scott because Scott unfortunately had no other choice but to dump her because, if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to get rid of Ramona, which is totally, I guess, understandable on his part. But, you know, because, Ramona's pretty cool. If I were in Scott's shoes, I probably would have done the same thing.
Scott was a simp before simps were a thing.
You're not wrong. You could say that he was a simp, but you know, but at the end of the day, you can't really blame him. He ended up having a really good relationship with Ramona by the end of it all.
Eh,
Um,
I'll give him a pass.
yeah, but later on over time, Scott does mature and he realizes that he has to take responsibility for his own actions. He has to mature and grow up. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really good storytelling right there.
it
Granted,
is. Yeah,
I haven't seen the film just yet, but like
yeah,
just from the description here, I can definitely see that yeah, I like the direction.
yeah. Before then, Scott was actually pretty lazy. He kind of just didn't really feel the need to do anything up until Ramona came into his life. Ramona, as soon as Ramona completely put him in a trance and charmed him to the point where he's just completely obsessed with her, he had a reason. He had something to motivate him, to push him forward and become an adult. And that's actually a pretty good plot idea.
Okay,
And there's some
forget what I said about the simp. That's actually kind of cool.
yeah, but it's actually some really good character development. Uh, but at first, Scott does seem like a simp, but that quickly changes. It's kind of like the best way I can put it. It's like the same way you look at Mordecai or Finn when they simped over Princess Bubblegum or I guess what was her name? Margaret, I think. That's a good way of looking at it. Scott's like that,
Hmm.
kinda, but I'd say even better.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really interesting idea, just the concept of having to mature and build up your not only your self-respect, not only your self-respect, your maturity and other things, but just again trying to learn how to become a real adult and handle things in the most mature way possible.
Hmm.
And Scott realizes this. I also think that over time, Scott, this is kind of a bit obvious, but he's a lot less awkward around Ramona later on because, he gets to know her more. I think in the comic there was more character development between the two, but again, it's the comic. There was more runtime for them to work with. But you could assume that a lot of the character development that he and Ramona did in the movie was done off screen.
Hmm.
So, you know, so they probably didn't just get it on immediately, but they did get it on pretty quick. At least that's what it would seem like to most people. And,
Yeah.
can't really blame them.
True.
But
True.
but yeah, it was a really good movie. I remember that not only does Scott apologize for the whole ordeal with Kim and not Kim and Knives. I mean Ramona and Knives. he doesn't just tell him that I cheated on both of you, I'm sorry. He makes up, you know, for his mistakes that he made with, Kim by not. I think it had something to do with not telling her that he was moving out of Toronto or something. I think that's where he lived initially. Because I think Scott Pilgrim takes place in Canada,
Hmm.
so that's another fun fact if you're curious as to where Scott Pilgrim takes place and why Scott Pilgrim is the way it is. Blah blah blah. It takes place in Canada, so uh, but yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, there's also another girl that he he re-encounters, I'd say, because this is an old this is like an ex of his. She goes by the name of Envy Adams, and in both the comic and the movie, she's meant to look, visually attractive, because she becomes like this really famous like singer that's a part of a band. So I remember that she becomes a conflict as well as her boyfriend. Forgot his name. I know that her boyfriend is a vegan. What's his face? Oh, Todd. That's his name. Todd Ingram. He's essentially the vegan god, right? And this is funny. Like the way how they portrayed vegans in Scott Pilgrim is that like it's almost as if they're invincible and can't be touched. Like in the movies, like his eyes are glowing and there's like smoke or dust coming, or not smoke. Like there's like this really crazy smoke effect coming out of his eyes, or like mist, and it's actually kind of cool. But it's so dumb because like th- this is what happens when you become a vegan. All right, cool.
So
And then by
vegans are just ultra instinct now, I guess.
pretty much, yeah, that's basically the general idea. Vegans are ultra instinct, and the only way to like stop them from being ultra instinct is for them to essentially make them go on three strikes, because that's what Scott does. I think he gives him like a cup of half and half. He drinks it, and then Scott's like, "It's half and half, fool. This is what you get for screwing me over. Having a nice time being arrested by the vegan police."
That's
That's no
awesome.
joke, by the way. There's an actual vegan police. I'm not even kidding. And
So
they're all like,
if vegan
no vegan diet, no vegan powers.
if
So
vegans
they
are ultra instinct, that means vegan police must be beerus.
wait, what now?
if if vegans are ultra instinct, then the vegan police must be like something like beerus, right?
I guess that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, you could say that, because they can essentially just confiscate all of like the vegan of all their powers. So, which essentially happened to uh Todd Ingram. Just like, it was so stupid, but it was hilarious at the same time. It's just like, this is what happens when you become a vegan. All right, awesome. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't eat the meat
Scott.
anyway.
Yeah, so Scott manages to trick him. I think he was gonna give him like was it soy milk or something? But yeah, he ends up giving uh Todd like half and half instead, and that just gives him a third uh non-vegan strike. So now he's no longer vegan. He doesn't have his powers anymore. After that, Scott headbutts him and kills him, and he just turns into a bunch of coins, which Scott collects. That's pretty much what happens when Scott beats every evil X. Is that they turn into like a bunch of coins, and it's actually kind of cool. So yeah, that happens. I also remember there being, you know, another. I'm trying to remember. Uh, let me see. Oh right, Lucas Lee. That's right. That's his name. This was funny. Okay, so the thing about Lucas Lee, he dated Ramona for a while, I think, before Scott came into the picture, and I think there was some like context or some like things going on between Ramona and Lucas. Uh, and then he sees Scott for like the first time, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you." And Scott's like, "Yeah, go ahead." And well, he's not like, he's like, I'm a big fan. And then I remember seeing in the movie like he punches him like twice. The first time he's like completely unfazed, and he's like, "Can I have your autograph?" And he just punches him again, and then he does it's so long, King Bowser sort of throw to like into this giant castle prop. Scott just falls down, falls back all the way back down to the concrete, just like in complete pain after that. For a short period of time, then he gets back up, and then you realize, oh, there's stunt doubles. Okay, so now Scott has to fight all these stunt doubles of Lucas Lee, and just, he fights them, and then Lucas Lee, like the actual Lucas Lee, not the stunt doubles, Lucas Lee walks off for a bit. Takes out his phone. He pulls out his phone. He's like, "Hey, I'm going somewhere. Do you guys want anything?" And they're like, "Nah, we're good." And I'm like, "What the?" I'm laughing. It's so ridiculous. It's perfect.
Just as a
Like
note,
the humor.
we do not condone beating stunt doubles. They do the work that regular actors don't do, and they deserve to be appreciated more often. But
Yeah,
that is pretty funny.
yeah, it is. And then after that, something else that happens is that I think uh, I'm trying to remember like what Lucas Lee does next. I think he punches him through like this like sort of weird looking background thing, like this not background thing. What do you call it? It's like a green screen, but it isn't. He punches him through it. I think it's like backdrop, a background backdrop thing. He punches Scott through it, and he's like, uh, "Don't worry about the whole evil X's thing. You want to go out and get a drink?" She's like, "Sure." And then he just grabs and punches him. He's like, and then he just laughs. It's so ridiculous. And then Scott gets the clever idea and says, "Hey, you can skate, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can skate 10 times better than you can." He's like, "Am I doing a grind? Am I doing a thingy?" He's like, "You mean grind?" It's like, "Yeah, a grind thingy." And then, uh, and then I know he says something like afterwards, "Nah, man, the rails kind of suck. They're kind of rusty. They're not worth grinding on." And then I know Scott says something else to motivate him, and he starts doing it, and he grinds down like this really long, like just set of rails, like next to like the set of staircases that go up to like the movie set, right? Because I think they're up on like a hill or something, sort of, or not a hill, but yeah, like a hill. So he grinds down the staircase on a skateboard, and then when he gets to the bottom, he just dies. It's so stupid. I love it. Like this is the kind of stuff in Scott Pilgrim that I love. And then by the end of it all, he comes into this guy named Gideon, who's essentially the big bad evil X. Um, and I know at first in the movie, Scott Pilgrim gets his butt handed to him the first time, and I guess he ends up getting a game over or something, or something that forces him to restart. So he starts all over from that point. And then he like he apologizes to some of the people he didn't apologize to before, if not all of them, I think. And like the places where he had to like put in the passwords, he didn't. He just kind of punched the guys that asked for the password to get into the club that Gideon was in when he got on the first time. Like he, instead of saying what the password was, he just kind of punched the two guys, started beating the living tar out of them, and then because of all of that, instead of getting the what is it? I'm trying to think. Instead of getting like this, I don't remember what it was called. It was like the. It was a sword. I know that. It was like a katana sort of looking thing. I know it was called like the something of self love, and then the other one was self respect. I'm trying to look for it right now. Give me a second. Oh, the power. Okay, so there are these two swords, and the first one was called the power of love, and the other one was called the power of self respect. I think. And like when he pulls out this like the power of self respect, I just found that funny and really cool. And I remember like it starts off by Gideon saying something like, "Oh, are you fighting me for Ramona?" He's like, "No, I'm fighting you for me." And he's like, "What?" or something. The first time around it was for Ramona, though, of course. But the second time around, it's for him because I think at first Scott dies and he's put into the what's it called? I'm trying to remember what subspace. Yeah, he dies and then he's sent to subspace, either subspace or somewhere else. And Ramona just so happens to be there, and Ramona just gives him this big motivational speech or something, and then they make out, and then Scott's like, "Yeah, okay, I'm ready to take on Gideon again." And then he remembers that he got a life earlier on in the movie, or if you're reading the comics in Volume 5, because he fights Gideon in Volume 6, which is the last volume in the comic. Um, but or no, I think he gets I think he gets the extra life either in Volume 5 or in Volume 3. I don't remember. It was something silly like that, but or something crazy like that. But yeah, he ends up getting an extra life. He revives himself. He starts fighting Gideon, and it's so cool. But obviously, when it comes to other things like the comic and stuff, the story is told in a different way. But I might go over that another time.
Yeah.
If we ever happen to do a second part for Scott Pilgrim.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll have to read like I'll have to read all of the comic volumes before I actually start covering the comic, and I want to cover the game too. But I haven't played it yet, so for now I'm covering the movie. But yeah, it was great. It
Yep.
was actually great.
And I think that's all the time we have left for today, don't we?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Oh yeah, it's Scott Pilgrim. It's pretty great. I've had some interest in it for a while, and I might get into it when the game comes out. So hey, that's pretty cool.
And I'm probably going to get the game once it drops myself, so hopefully I'll be able to get the chance to play it. I'm very much looking forward to it. But anyways, if you guys happen to enjoy this episode of the Saloon Podcast, make sure you all stay tuned for, well, more Pokemon next time, because we're
we're
gonna be talking about Pokemon Black and White again.
we're going back
Because
to our regularly scheduled Pokemon marathon.
yeah, because we missed that this time because I wanted to talk about Scott Pilgrim for a little bit, but yeah, we'll see you then.
Bye bye.
Yep, see ya.